We're going to talk about capillary flow, movement across capillaries next week. I want to tell you a little bit more of the basics of capillaries this week. Capillaries, as you know, are exchange vessels. So this is where exchange of blood occurs. Blood actually leaves these vessels by bulk flow. Fluid flows out of the capillaries. You also have an exchange of oxygen out and carbon dioxide into the capillaries. So we'll look at that detail next week, but I want to give you a little bit more anatomy of capillaries now. First of all, there's 3 types of capillaries. Of course, there's more than one, right? So they all have a single layer of endothelium, right? You know that. And then was a 1 cell thick, simple squamous epithelium, that tunica intima, simple squamous, and surrounded by this basement membrane, which is actually it's just kind of proteins and stuff. And then, so that's what they all have. But then there's 3 different types. So some are more porous than others. Are there names for these things? Of course. These ones are the most common. These are called continuous. So they have really tight junctions between the different cells. There is a small cleft, so a gap between them, but there's tight junctions. The cells are close together. They're not gappy. So most of what's going to go through here is going to go through the cell wall. Sorry, there's no cell wall in animals. That's plants. Cell membrane. So diffusion of small molecules, water, lipid-soluble molecules. Some vesicular transport can occur across these. And this is what we'll look at next week in more detail in terms of how things move across capillaries. But now I want to tell you about the other types as well, because we won't talk about these other ones next week. This one here is called fenestrated. Fenestrations are holes. So these are pores. These have fenestrations or pores that allow stuff to go through them. So more rapid exchange can occur faster, and then larger things like peptides. For example, in the portal system of the pituitary gland, these are going to exist to allow for those hypothalamic releasing hormones to get to the anterior pituitary through those capillaries. They're also present in small intestine for absorption of nutrients and the kidney. And we'll see that it's in the kidney when we talk about kidney filtration, going from blood to the production of filtrate to form urine. So more permeable. This last one are more rare. These are sinusoid. These are very, very gappy. The basement membrane isn't even solid, so there's big holes here. This is for throwing stuff out. So these are going to be present in places like the bone marrow. Why? Red bone marrow, we want blood cells to be able to get out and quickly. Spleen, liver, these are all places where you have blood traveling across the capillaries quickly. You want to be able to have that. And blood cells, right? Those are bigger. Those aren't going to travel across continuous capillaries. So that's the 3 kinds of capillaries. The other thing I want to tell you about now is the relationship between arterioles and capillaries, a little bit more about those connections. So this is showing an arteriole, smooth muscle, and there are 2 paths that blood can take as it passes through circulation at the capillary bed. So this might be in your, let's say in your digestive system. Let's say that's where we're looking at, a capillary bed in your digestive system. You can either go through the capillary bed to provide nutrients to the tissues that are there, right? So 1 capillary bed, and that's probably what you kind of expect, right? However, you also can bypass. And this is through a meta-arteriole. I always add extra A there. So these sphincters can close. They're called precapillary sphincters, and they close so that blood can't enter the capillary bed. This is a local regulation, so it's auto-regulation. We'll look back at this when we get to regulation. Auto-reg. If you have these closed, the blood then passes through here and goes to the venule without passing through the capillary bed. So this is important for local regulation of blood flow through tissues. This is actually, oh, I do have another picture of that. This is the two different scenarios that you could have. Nice summary there. And it's thought that this actually primarily happens in just the intestines, which is an important place. So you are not providing blood here to the intestines if you don't need to. The intestines, if you're not resting and digesting, if you're running away from a bear, you're not going to have blood flow through these, the capillary beds. A historically hot debated topic. This would be something to read if you want to do an extra credit